In this special Halloween edition of What's New, go behind the scenes of one of New England's most haunted locations, the USS Salem, as we chat with the team from Greater Boston Paranormal Associates. Also, learn about the ghosts associated with America's hometown from Geoffrey Campbell, the owner and operator of Plymouth Night Tour. What's new for Halloween? Here's your ghoulish host, Sam Baltrusis.
And welcome to the Halloween edition of What's New Massachusetts. My name is Sam Baltrusis. I'm an author and journalist. Joining me is my good friends from the Greater Boston Paranormal Associates, Don Cristofaro and Suzanne Villegas.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey. So guys, what's new for Halloween?
Oh, we got all kinds of things going on.
Yep.
Sue.
Yep, all kinds of stuff.
We're spending a lot of time on the USS Salem, as we always do. We have a couple of public investigations coming up. We have a lot of open dates, so we'd love to have people come and visit for the Halloween season.
So tell me, guys, how did you get involved with the USS Salem? I know that we actually met on the USS Salem. So Dawn, and then I also met Suzanne on a tour when it was Ghost Ship Harbor. So how did you get started? And tell me about your backstory with the USS Salem.
Sure. I actually became involved with the Salem before I knew she was haunted. Mm-hmm. I grew up about 3 or 4 blocks from where the Salem is located. I worked at the shipyard after I got out of the Navy, just like my father did and my brother did. So I was kind of drawn to the ship when it was brought back to Quincy, and I started hanging around the ship and volunteering, giving tours. And once I realized it was haunted, I very rarely ever left, actually. So I was involved with the ship long before I knew it was haunted.
All right, how about you?
Yeah, I just went to Ghost Ship Harbor. I saw the ad and I went, and that's the night I met both of you. And I had a fantastic experience, and after that was called on by Dawn to help out the following year to be a guide in the paranormal scene, and have been with Greater Boston since.
Well, it was really cool because Suzanne was so enthusiastic the first tour, and that's what we were looking for. And she was like, "Oh, look at this," with our friend Casey, and it was, and that's the kind of person that we're looking for as far as people to work with and people to bring into the paranormal community. And so, with that said, how do you deal with someone who has that enthusiasm coming in on your investigations?
Well, it's. I was going to say it's not easy, but that's not necessarily true. Because it's always great to have an influx of enthusiasm like that. Not that you ever get bored doing what we do, you know that. But when you get an injection of people like Suzanne, Casey, as you said, Eba Nagy and Sandra Perez are some of the other new people on the team. The good thing is ideas, always new ideas, always things that we haven't thought of, or different approaches to how we do the things we do. We're a lot more varied now in terms of how we feel about the things we see and hear. We have a lot more spirited discussions now about theories and things of that nature. So it's really great. I mean, Suzanne, I couldn't be happier with Suzanne and Casey and the new other people on the team. It's really been a pleasure.
Now let's get to the meat of the story. Why would the USS Salem be haunted?
Well, primarily, and I tell people all the time, I would be very surprised if there was a ship in naval history that never saw combat but saw as much death as the Salem did. She spent most of her time in the Mediterranean. As you know, she was the flagship of the 6th Fleet. And in 1953, when she was in the Med, there was a very bad earthquake on one of the Ionian Islands. And for all intent and purposes, the Salem was the hospital. She did humanitarian work, not for very long because, she wasn't outfitted for that kind of mission. But for about 4 days, she basically was the hospital for all of the people that were hurt during the earthquake. A lot of people came aboard the ship and left. And a lot of people, sadly, didn't leave the ship alive. There were some other accidents. Later on, there was an explosion of a smaller ship next door to the Salem that was moored next to the Salem that some of those guys were brought aboard the ship and they died as well. They were badly burned or hurt in the explosion. And some of those guys are still aboard the ship as well.
So you and I worked on a national TV show together that was shot on the USS Salem, and while I was filming it, what we call the Burning Man. So it goes from kind of cool to very hot within seconds. Now, what are your thoughts on the Burning Man?
I'm stunned, frankly.
Really?
Because the Burning Man is something that we've talked about quite a bit.
Right.
And I've certainly been in situations aboard the ship where there are dramatic temperature fluctuations. There's no question about that.
Right.
But the Burning Man itself is something that the temperature fluctuations are really the extent of my experience to that particular phenomena.
Right.
And while, again, I appreciate the logic behind it and the thought process behind it, it's not necessarily a theory I'm 100% behind.
Well, what do you think is haunting the vessel?
Well, as far as the Burning Man, I've had that dream of go home and have dreams of kids or burning or something, like intense enough to say it out loud, and it was immediately after the ship. The same as Casey did. So that was, I thought, kind of maybe connected. So.
Have you had any paranormal experiences on the vessel?
I've had a lot of EVPs, like basically a guy, negative, get out, get off. The minute I had gotten on once, waiting for a friend of mine in the hall, just got there, and I've got my recorder out, and right away I get out. And you can tell when it's guttural, not that we laughed, but yeah, there's some angry old men on that ship, for sure.
I agree with that. I think that whether you call him the Burning Man or just cranky old cook or an old sailor that may be cranky, whatever you want to call it,
right.
there is something, and it could be related to the fact that maybe there's sailors still lingering on the vessel. So, we have different opinions on what it is, but we all agree that the USS Salem is wicked haunted.
Oh, the Salem is the real thing. There's no question about it. There's no question about that. Some of the audio we have from the ship is mind-boggling, really. And the great stuff about it is, and you know this, the audio that we get from the ship is contextual.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's almost as though they're part of the conversation. They're listening and they want to take part, or else they bring us back to the conversation when we start to wander a little bit.
Now, I also have a theory when it comes to Ghost Ship Harbor. So we all met on Ghost Ship Harbor, which was a haunted attraction on a haunted vessel. Not a good combination there. Kind of like stirred the pot.
In retrospect.
So this is what's new. So the thing is, what's new for this year is they're actually not going to have the haunted house on USS Salem. So tell me about that. Like, it went on for 3 years, and tell me what the latest is.
Well, as you said, Ghost Ship Harbor evolved, over the course of the 3 years they were there. And personally, I think they did a much better job as time went by. I agree with you wholeheartedly that first year, there were a lot of mistakes made in terms of how we managed things, how things were managed in general. I think it stirred up things in a way that certainly were unintentional, but in retrospect, I think we should have seen coming.
Oh yeah.
And the following year we changed it up and we more separated the haunted house aspect of the ship from the actual paranormal aspect of the ship. And the last year, the third year, they were absolutely split. We had nothing to do with the haunted house.
And I think that was probably the biggest problem for the first year. Kind of give you an idea. I was brought on. I did not end up lasting the entire season because I was mortified. People were getting hurt. There was safety issue. It was raining. There's a lot of things why I didn't last in the vessel. Doesn't mean I don't love the USS Salem, because I do. But what I don't love is seeing my friends and people get hurt or attacked, whether it's from something unseen or something like physical, like a fire or an electrical shock or something. And so there were some safety issues.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Whether it's from the ghost or not, we don't know. With that said, there was a fire last year. Mm-hmm. Now, the theory is, and I've said this publicly, that I think that was it paranormal related to the fire. I said absolutely. What are your thoughts on the fire?
I don't think the fire was directly related to any paranormal aspect of the ship. I think it was an electrical malfunction. I think the crew that was there last year weren't as good as the crews that had been there previously in terms of the electricians and those guys. And I think some of the work they did was a little shoddier than it had been in the past. That doesn't mean, paranormal things manifest in a lot of different ways. So that certainly doesn't mean it had nothing to do with it. But I think it was more a matter of slipshod workmanship than anything else. And in the end, it really didn't matter because the fire department basically said enough was enough, and that was it as far as Ghost Ship Harbor was concerned.
Okay, I'm glad we cleared that up. All right, we just came back from Mass Paracon. Did you have a good experience out in the Berkshires?
Oh, man.
It was great. It was one of the best weekends. I'm still not over it. Thank you so much, Sam. Like the location, the history, the hauntings, the people, it was just amazing. I am speechless.
Well, it was a great weekend.
Thank you.
No question about it.
And to kind of give you an idea, so what I produce a yearly convention. It's a paranormal themed convention. We have investigators, we have celebrities that you see on television, we have authors. This year's theme was ghost writers. So we had a lot of paranormal themed authors gathered in one location. There were lectures, there were ghost hunts. We went to the Mount on Friday night. I'm telling you guys, the Mount, Edith Wharton's The Mount, is absolutely haunted, but it was so good.
So haunted, so haunted. I have great pictures.
And we started off in the stable, and I'll tell you from the very beginning, there was just, and this is supposed to be just like a ghost tour where we're not really investigating, but it turned out to be probably one of the most intense evenings that I've had in a long time.
Oh, it was really great.
Yeah, I thought it was just a ghost tour, like ease into the weekend, and I'm still, like I said, I'm not over it. It was intense.
Things heated up at the end, which in terms of our evening at the Mount.
Right.
Things really kind of got craziest towards the end.
We thought we were walking into a ghost tour. Ends up being this epic investigation evening with a lot of my friends gathered together. So
it was great.
It was great. And you also went to the Hoosac Tunnel as well, right?
Yeah, we did. I for whatever reason we've never been, and I've always wanted to go. So Sunday on the way home, we stopped at the Hoosac Tunnel, and we actually spent a couple of hours there. I walked pretty far in.
Not me.
And it was kind of interesting. No, Suzanne didn't walk very far, but it was kind of interesting. When I came out, there were several other people there, all of whom said, "Did you hear the train come through?" And I said, "Jesus, I was in the tunnel. I think if a train had come through, I probably would have noticed." But Suzanne
and I heard it too. I was doing Echo Box, and I heard it too. I wouldn't have said a word because I would have thought I was just going crazy. But these people were, take your headphones off and like, "Did you hear the train? Did the train come through?" No.
So we're talking about a possible ghost train going through the tunnel.
I never heard anything.
Residual energy, I don't know. Yeah.
But, and that to give you an idea, that would be considered a residual haunting. So if you hear something, it's psychically imprinted, which would make sense because this was known as the Bloody Pit, and a lot of people died making that tunnel that you guys were walking through. And maybe it's something that's kind of collecting the data or collecting the psychic imprint in the rocks. So the Bloody Pit or the granite, maybe kind of like a video recorder recording something that's gone through for hundreds, for about 100 years.
I kind of wondered, I kind of start to think time slip.
Right.
But certainly something residual, certainly nothing interactive, and it was amazing. Like I said,
cool.
I've always wanted to go, and it was more than cool. It was.
Yeah,
it was
Don was in his glory. He was in his glory. It was cute.
All right, so we also have Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast coming up.
I can't wait.
And that's November 30th. Unfortunately, it looks like we're sold out. We have investigation-only tickets, but the overnight has been sold out. But we have those coming up. We generally do one maybe once a year. It's a paranormal showdown. So our team is going up against Lucky Bel Camino's team.
Great.
So we're going to win, right?
Hey,
we won last year.
Took on all comers. That's no problem.
So much fun.
Now, what are your thoughts on the hauntings of Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast? Do you feel like that it's overrated? Part of me feels like it is a little bit overrated, but I do think that what's there is something's being stirred there. People are bringing their own baggage with them.
Yeah, frankly, for the longest time, I thought there was really nothing there. And this this November will be my third time spending the night there. So the first time I came away with nothing, and I really thought, I don't think there's anything here. But last year was a little bit different. We had got some audio last year.
Some great audio.
And we had some pretty odd experiences in the house, and I agree with you. I don't think it's all it's cracked up to be, but I definitely think there's something there. I don't think there's any question about that.
I think that opinions kind of change after experiences like we had last year and just going back again and again. I mean, based on what I thought versus like what my first experience was versus say even last year, it's gotten progressively more haunted each time I go. So I also was able to go to Maplecroft, which was amazing. So
we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
It would be great to be able to do that, maybe as a team effort or kind of like come together
we'd like to do
as a
that.
group.
Yeah, we were just talking about that at the Paracon.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So anything else coming up for the Greater Boston Paranormal Associates?
Like I said, we're on the Salem through most of October. The Monsterland podcast is going to be doing a live podcast on the Salem on October 19th. This is Ronnie LeBlanc and Maddie Blake from Maddie Blake's show is drilling down at Oak Island.
Okay.
He's very involved with the work up at Oak Island, and I met Maddie through a mutual friend, and we got to talking, and they're going to do Monsterland aboard the ship the 19th, which is really going to be awesome.
And also, guys, we are going to have the clip from the Travel Channel, Ship of Anguish Spirits, airing first on the 15th at 10 p.m. And the show's called Most Terrifying Places, and it's going to repeat over and over again throughout Ghostober on the Travel Channel.
Really looking forward to that.
So if people want to reach out to you, if they want to schedule a tour, where do they go?
You can get us at info@the GBPA, that's Greater Boston Paranormal Associates, .com. That's our website. Info will get you there, get you to me, or Don D at thegbpa.com. And we'll take on all comers. The more the merrier aboard the ship. We, since our tours are authentic, we can never promise anything, but it is a very, very rare night when something doesn't happen aboard the Salem that leaves people shaking their heads.
So we're actually going to run a clip from the USS Salem. So let's check it out.
Launched on March 25, 1947 in Quincy, and nicknamed the Sea Witch by her crew, the USS Salem never saw combat, but certainly was a harbinger of death. In fact, the area beneath the mess hall became a makeshift morgue during the earthquake off the coast of Greece in 1953, and it's estimated that at least 400 dead bodies were kept on the vessel. On board, there's a motley crew of resident ghosts, including the Burning Man, who supposedly smells like death and hides in the berthing area beneath the third mess hall, where the bodies were kept during the Ionian earthquake. There's also a ghost girl who speaks Greek, a salty sea captain, a growling devil dog, a cook who likes to keep the kitchen in order, and a man named John, who reportedly gives tours of the USS Salem in the afterlife.
A lot of bodies brought aboard the ship. A lot of people died on that island, and they brought some bodies on into the operating room, and they died. They had to put them in the freezers down below. The CPO mess is, you've heard strange noise coming out of there, and you go in there, there's nobody in there. A couple of years ago at Halloween, some of the girls said that they had scratches, and they were in the wardroom pantry. They felt they had scratches on them after.
So have you had any experiences with the Greek ghost on this vessel?
Yes, and I'm not gonna talk about it. It's my idea. It's something that I want to do and see if, see if somebody has something they want to say. I'm sure with so many souls, someone has to have a message somewhere, that they want to leave.
And welcome back to the special Halloween edition of What's New Massachusetts. Joining me is Geoff Campbell from Plymouth Night Tours.
How are you?
Hey, good to see you. All right, so tell me what's new for Halloween?
Well, our tours in Plymouth are filling up for one thing, but we've also got a nice little event sometime in a little bit after Halloween that you're going to be involved with as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be November 16th. The Braintree Historical Society is putting on this pretty much like a evening event, right? Now tell me about that and what can we expect?
Well, we'll start in the afternoon, do some lectures and questions and Q&As with yourself, James Anito, Matt Warner and Rachel Hoffman. Tim Weisberg will be there and Stephanie Burke. So we've got a nice little array of people, some of the local all-stars of the paranormal world, shall we say, as well as an author. And myself, and I'll be hosting it for the most part for the Braintree Historical Society. I'm a life member and have been involved since I was in my 20s. And it's a very interesting set of properties. So we've only done one ghost hunt there last year, but this year I wanted to expand a little bit more and bring in some more people that have a lot more experiences and different skill sets as well to kind of go through some of the buildings and see what we can pull up, if anything at all.
And that's the thing, when you're a paranormal investigator, I'm a sensitive who, I always say that I don't hunt ghost hunt me kind of thing. But when I go into these locations, I can pick up like the psychic imprint on the location or whatever is there. And sometimes I want to leave quickly, or it depends on the type of spirit energy that's lingering. So this hasn't really been investigated. So people like us love that.
Right. We're talking about, we're starting at the top tip of the iceberg and we're looking down and trying to find what's underneath the waterline is basically what we're looking at. The Sylvanus Thayer birthplace has been moved a mile from its original location. It is where General Sylvanus Thayer was born in 1785, and he is actually the man who helped construct Fort Warren and Fort Independence.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's important.
It is. He was from a large family. And so that birthplace is full of all sorts of artifacts that are true to the time period, as well as some modern day items as well in the gift shop, etc. It's a very unique home in the fact that we actually let people be hands-on in the home during school programs. They get to weave on a loom, dip candles, bake bread, churn butter. The kids all get a chance to actually do things hands-on. And so what we want to do is we want to bring people in and have them sit down and experience some of the flavor of that from the 18th century. But the other properties that we're investigating are interesting as well. The Thayer House barn was built in 1975.
Wow.
It was built on the site of an old haunted house, quote unquote, that the neighborhood showed was an abandoned house. And it was one of those dare things. Go run up and knock on the door and see if anybody answers. So in and of itself, that is full of all sorts of artifacts as well. And you and I both know that sometimes artifacts have things that follow them.
Yes.
So,
and I think that would be the case there, but also anything with like that much history to it, there's got to be a ghost or two lingering in the shadows.
There has to be somebody in the shadows, exactly. Yeah. There are reports of the light in one of the rooms downstairs that they know is shut off when they leave, coming back in and finding it turned back on. And it is the former caretaker's office that I knew. I knew the man very well. And I would not be surprised at all if this person was still there kind of keeping an eye on things, so to speak. Would be very like him. And but the other one that's really interesting for me, and I wanted to get in there, I was excited to get in there last year, I'm just as excited to get in there again this year, is the Dr. Gallivan House.
Oh.
This was built in 1931 by Dr. Gallivan as a wedding present for his wife. He practiced in the building from that time period up until the 1960s, until at which point he sold it to a dentist who then took over and practiced it until the early 80s. Given the time period knowing doctors' practices in the 30s and 40s, very often emergency surgeries, etc., emergency births, etc., would also take place in the building. It is a very interesting building in many respects. I will be fascinated to watch you go through it.
Well, I'll tell you, anything like I say, like hospitals or anything where there was like botched surgery, I don't like it. Like it has a bad vibe to it, but we don't know that yet. Like any other any deaths that you know of caused by the doctor.
Not deaths so much. Everything that we can dig up from him seems to be glowing reports.
Good.
For instance, he delivered 3,500 babies.
Okay.
We know that much. But at some point we will host another event, hopefully for the 4th home on the property as well. So.
And it could be what's called a happy haunting. So not everything is bad. Like we always think of like death, murder. That does possibly leave a psychic imprint on a location, but weddings can leave an imprint, a birth of a child. So that's also the case for the USS Salem. There were a lot of births that happened, even though it was traumatic conditions, but they were births on the vessel too. So if they're ghost kids, it could be related to that.
Exactly.
So anything else that we have? I know that that Jeff is one of the sponsors for next year's Plymouth Paracon. So it's Mass Paracon 4. So tell me about like your involvement with that. I mean, it was fantastic this past year, and it's going to be 2020. So are you getting ready for 2020 festivities?
There are all sorts of things getting ready in Plymouth right now. For instance, First Parish Meeting House, the Stone Church at the head of Town Square. Not the white one that we investigated.
The Church of the Pilgrimage, right?
That's the Church of the Pilgrimage. But the stone one that's the head of Town Square, and they're related to one another. That one is under reconstruction. So they've pulled all the roofing off because it's all old slate roofing, and it was leaking. So that's coming down. They're repointing all of the stonework on the outside. Everything's covered with scaffolding and fiberglass netting to keep things from flying off of the building and hurting people.
And creating other ghosts, right?
Creating more ghosts. So we got that going on. Church of the Pilgrimage just underwent more facelift from what you saw from last year.
Right.
The meeting house in town, the old courthouse in Town Square, that's getting a little bit of work done as well during the next year. And significantly to my mind is a lot of the burial stones on Burial Hill that were broken from vandalism, etc., and neglect over the years are now being restored.
That is awesome, because there was some vandal issues happening, and one of the most historic and haunted cemeteries in the country, I believe.
Right.
And so this is where the first settlement of the Pilgrims, where they were, like in the middle, was the initial fort, right?
Right, that's where the fort was built, up on the top of the hill.
And so the Plymouth Paracon, or it's Mass Paracon 4, go to plymouthparacon.com for more information. But it's going to be September 25th to September 27th. 2020. Jeff, it's been a pleasure talking to you and seeing you again.
When black cats prowl and pumpkins gleam, may luck be yours on Halloween.